Happy Monday, and welcome to Chapter 17, Personal Selling and Sales Management. In today's class, which, by the way, is one of the last three we have together, it's hard to believe our time is almost up, but there's only three classes this week. Then you hand in your report, the exam, and I get to see the videos you're producing, or we chat about your project on the phone. So be sure to take a look in the announcement section again, where I've listed off the day where your group is due to present your paper. All right, today we want to talk about sales management, or sales and sales management. This is another form of promotion. It's a very specialized form of promotion, though, and it tends to be the most expensive, and we're going to see why in just a few minutes. Personal selling, as compared to what we've seen in the past, which is advertising, public relations, public relations and the sales promotions, has a number of advantages. The biggest of which is this is the best way that we can provide a detailed explanation of the product. Now you might be saying, look, if we've got owned media and we're putting up a very distinct and a very extensive description of the product, that's giving a detailed explanation. Well, it is, but there's a small problem with having it going through owned media. In owned media, again, what we're doing is we're going out one way only. And that means that we're not keying what we're trying to explain about the product to the needs of the consumer or the end user if it's a B2B sale. The beauty of sales management, or the beauty of sales, personal selling, is this. The beauty of personal selling is you have a salesperson right in front of the consumer, or right in front of that user. They're looking for all those nonverbal cues about things that either that person doesn't understand or isn't interested in. And that allows them to modify the way they pitch the product, the way they present the product, the benefits that are presented, the information is presented, the order, so it fits that particular consumer or user. If we're just doing owned media, we put it out based upon some generic average we've come up with using marketing research. All the stuff that's there is important. The problem is it might not be important in the same order to the consumer we have in front of us right now. So that's the big advantage of personal selling. Okay? The thing with personal selling is we only use it when we have qualified prospects. Now what that means is we tend to only use personal selling when we know somebody's willing to buy. You've probably seen this when you go on a car lot, because car sales reps are really good at this. They can spot the tire kickers, the ones that are just looking around, maybe just thinking about it, or are bored and just want to see new cars, from those that are really interested. And whereas they will talk to the tire kicker, because you never know when they're going to move up to be a prospect, and you don't want to give up that opportunity, they will leave them when they can find a qualified prospect. Now, a qualified prospect is somebody who's come through that sales channel and is ready to buy. Okay? The one thing with personal selling is it's expensive. It's a very expensive way of reaching a consumer or an end user. Whereas the other methods we saw were based upon cost per thousand or cost per click, things like that. This one you really have to look at in terms of what's the session time cost that you're spending with this prospect? And are you going to be able to recoup that within a reasonable period of time? Now, the way you try and control your sales force costs, we're going to see this in the sales management side at the end of the chapter, is you control the number of sales reps. And what you try and do is balance off the number of sales reps you have with the number of customers, keeping in mind how many times the reps have to talk to the customers and how long each conversation is as they move through the funnel. Okay. The one thing we know for certain is personal selling is more effective than any of the other methods at getting somebody to buy. And it's more effective for a couple of reasons. One is we're hitting exactly the benefits the consumer is looking for. That's number one. Number two is there's a feeling of reciprocity that goes on between the consumer and the sales rep. The consumer feels if the sales rep's invested that much time, they owe them something. And that time that they feel the sales rep's invested in them is often represented by them giving them the sale. Okay, so those are the advantages. The disadvantages, well, it's high cost. Okay, there's no getting around that. Back in the days when I was working in medical devices, we used to calculate that a sales call cost at least $500 and probably was up into the thousands of dollars, especially if we had to fly somebody in. So if we were flying a rep in to talk to, let's say, the University of Pennsylvania Hospital in Hershey, you'd have to factor in the airfare, the rental car, the hotel, the time, from the time they left the office till the time they got back, because during that time they're really not too useful to us in terms of other sales things, other sales techniques. So that could run into the thousands of dollars. Now, we were selling a $10 million product, so that made sense. But it is a high cost. It's why you tend to see sales, personal selling used a lot when it's a high-priced item for consumers. Jewelry, cars, houses, appliances, and where you tend to see it a lot in the B2B side because the size of the orders are so big. Okay. Remember I told you in the early last slide that the beauty is you could modify the message to the user or the consumer. That's great. The problem is you've got to make sure that you've trained the staff properly to consistently deliver the same message and not to try and stretch meaning so they destroy accuracy. So the goal is lots of training. That takes us to the sales management piece we're going to see later, okay, to make sure we have a consistent message that's accurate that we can give the user or the consumer. If you've got a good salesperson, and this is why used car salespeople usually get such a bad reputation, they can sometimes convince people to purchase unneeded products or services. So used car salesmen are kind of famous for being able to talk people up in terms of the car they're buying. It's good for the sales rep because they're getting commissioned on the value of the vehicle. Maybe not so good for the consumer because they don't need all that type of vehicle at the time. So you have to be careful, and that's where you spend more time training, and you want to put a lot of effort into the ethical side of your sales force as well. Today, especially in the B2B side, but even on the B2C side a bit, we talk about relationship selling. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the sales process different than it was before. Sales used to be a very adversarial process. The sales rep would come in with their position, the company would have their position, they'd negotiate, but they kind of grind against each other, each one trying to get what they perceived as the best deal for them so that they were the one benefiting. They saw the pie as sort of one piece. In relationship selling, what you want to do is expand that pie. So instead of having a pie this big, you want a pie this big. And the way we do that is sales reps have moved away from kind of negotiating, bargaining. Now they're there to provide advice, assistance, and counsel to their customer base. Yeah, you might not want that product because it tends to break down after so many hours in use, and you've set a standard of this number, you should probably go up one model number. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for. Or you're looking for a product that does this. Yeah, we don't have anything directly like that. Now what I can do is go back to engineering and see what it would cost for us to modify our whatever model so it fits your needs exactly. You're seeing those types of things, or you are seeing those types of things. The big goal in all of this is we're trying to improve the customer's bottom line. They're probably saying, why the customer's bottom line? Well, the reason why we want to improve the customer's bottom line is if they're happy, they'll make sure we're happy. And we'll be happy in two ways. Number one is they'll be less aggressive on price than they were before. So we'll be able to get slightly more for our product than we were in the past. And we're much more likely to become their preferred supplier, which means we don't have to go through the bid process as often. So all of those things, we're trying to come up with ways we can work with the customer, improve their bottom line. And in doing so, we've taken sales as sort of this dark side of the business that nobody likes to talk about. And we've made it more of a priority. And especially if you work in a startup or a small firm, if you work in either one of those cases, everybody's in sales. Everybody has to be out selling to the consumer, pointing out, or to the user, pointing out why your product meets their needs the best. The benefits you're delivering on are far superior to anybody else's. Okay? We're also using more of a team approach to selling. If you read the cartoon Dilbert really dives into this. And he talks about every once in a while the guys from sales and marketing coming to the engineering section because they want to take the engineers out on a sales call. Now in Dilbert, there's this dichotomy between the sales and marketing guys who he portrays as, boozing, no-brained, promise you anything kind of guys, to the engineers who are, buttoned down, want to get the thing done and want to get it done properly. In reality, team approach selling is used by companies like HP. It's used by companies like Cargill. And the reason why is, as you get deeper and deeper ties with the company, you need your expert in a particular area, whether it's engineering, chemistry, seed, nutrition, to talk to their experts. It's because they want to talk about very specific things that a sales rep doesn't have a lot of detail in, even though we generally try and hire sales reps who have a bit of a technical background if it's technical sales, and technical background in a given area. Okay. What we also want to do is take a long-term approach. When we're dealing in relationship selling, it's not a one-off sale. So this old system where we bid, we'd come together, we'd smack heads, we grind against each other, an agreement would become, and then we'd separate, and we do it all over again at the end of the contract. That's kind of gone now. What we're trying to do is develop a long-term approach so that the companies are working closely together, sharing information, so that the vendor is providing the customer with the product they need at the right time, at the right price, and providing the right benefits. So that's relationship selling. Let's talk about what's the sales process. Now, throughout this course, I've talked about this thing called the sales funnel that moves people from the target market all the way down to the customer. Now, what you're going to find is, if you want to get 100 customers, you might have to talk to 10,000 people in your target market. And the reason why is the first step in the sales process. You need to generate leads, okay? You need to generate ideas of who in your market, okay, that 10,000 number is a consumer market, by the way, who in that market you're looking at, which may encompass hundreds of thousands or millions of people, is at that stage where they're ready to buy, would consider buying your product. You're in the consideration set, and are approachable. Once we generate the leads, and the way we generate the leads is we prospect. So we're looking for people maybe who send something into our social media page asking for information, or we buy information from Google or Facebook or somebody of people that are accessing our Facebook page, and we can track them back because we know if they're doing that they are a good candidate for us. If you're in the B2B side, you might do more cold calling. Okay, cold calling, especially in today's data analytics, is kind of going away. It's still around a bit, but kind of going away. Cold calling just means you pick up the phone and you just start dialing for dollars. Okay, you call people, you get rejected a lot. Telemarketers fall into cold calling. What they're trying to do is they'll call not 10,000, they might call 100,000 to get 100 sales. But what they're trying to do is talk to as many people as they can until they find somebody who's willing to buy. The reason why cold calling is dropping off, in addition to our better data analytics on the consumer side, most people today won't answer the phone if they don't recognize the number, or they're like me and they have a robocaller blocker on their phone to just block those calls out right away. Another way we get leads is through referrals. Now, I notice locally right now, Midco, the cable company, is offering a referral bonus. So if you refer a friend who signs up with Midco, Midco will give you a couple of payments on your, or take some money off your bill. They'll do the same thing for your friend as well. So what they're trying to do is use a referral. Referrals are great, especially in the consumer market, because if somebody refers you to somebody else, chances are that person, in the way they think, the benefits they're looking for, is almost identical to a customer you already have. So you know how to carefully sell to them. In the B2B side, referrals are great because usually the person making the referral is some sort of opinion leader. And that'll give you a great deal of credibility as you go through the market. The other way you generate leads is networking. If any of you go into a sales background, the first thing you probably want to do is join as many local organizations as you can. And if you've got kids, you make sure you show up at all of their sporting events. Because sales is all about who you know and how many people you know. And the more people you can connect with at a Chamber of Commerce mixer, at your child's softball game or hockey game, the more people you can connect through Kinsman or Rotary or whatever, the better off you're going to be. The next step is once you've got all these leads, then you have to qualify them. So these are people who seem to meet your need. Now you've got to figure out how well are they at meeting the need. So you want to test and see how recognized their need is. Do they really have a need that you're going to be able to fill? Okay, that's number one. Do they have the cash for it? And are they receptive and accessible? So what you're really looking for is you've identified those people in the target market you think are ready. That's your leads. Now what you do is you drill down. And probably one of the things you want to look for there is, even though somebody might be ready to buy, when are they ready to buy? You don't want to waste a lot of time on somebody who's thinking 12 months down the road. You probably want to look at somebody who's 1 to 3 months, because most sales reps are rewarded on some sort of monthly or quarterly basis. Okay? You've identified the person you most want to talk to. Fantastic. Now what you want to do is a needs assessment of them. And this is before you go and talk to them. So you want to learn more about them. Here's where the referral comes in. If you're referred to them, you've probably got a really good sense of that needs assessment. But if not, you've got to take a look at what product or service are they using now. So how are they solving the problem now? Remember, it's love the problem, not your solution. Figure out what their specific needs are. Again, if it's a referral, you probably got a really good idea. And if you've done your homework during the generating leads, you probably have a decent idea what their needs are. You may have identified as a company 5 benefits that you want to provide. And you may have ordered them, but for this particular customer, that might be in the wrong order. Number 3 for them might be the number 1 lead. Okay? Think about your competition. What are they doing? Who are they talking to? What are they promising this customer? And take a look at your industry structure that you're dealing in, especially if it's a B2B side. Are you the follow-on player? Are you the lead player? Or are you one of the tertiary players? Because that will have a big impact on how you approach the customer. If I'm selling, for example, if I'm selling earth-moving equipment and I'm Caterpillar, I know I'm the lead dog in that industry. I'm going to have a much different approach than Deere, who's number 2, and a very different approach than Volvo, who's a tertiary player in that marketplace. If I'm Caterpillar, I'm going to play on the fact I'm number 1 and play on all the things that made us number 1. If I'm Deere, I'm probably going to try and find ways where I can separate. Maybe it's a technical superiority. Maybe it's a new product development. Maybe it's in some form of customer service that you've just implemented that CAT doesn't have. And if I'm Volvo, I may come in with something different. I may come in with why follow the leaders when you can be unique. and maybe talk about something, well, you would talk about something that's unique to you. So that's in your pre-approach. Then once you go and talk to the customer, you take in a sales proposal. And what you're doing in that sales proposal is you're not telling them what you have to sell. Again, love the problem, not your solution. What you take into them is, hey, here's how we can solve your problem. And you'll put together a sales presentation. Most sales presentations are all based upon PowerPoint these days. You may refer them to some printed material, but most of it's electronic. And that sales presentation could last anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, depending upon how complicated the product is, where you're at in terms of the relationship with that customer, and the time that they've allocated to you. But again, what you're trying to do at that point is sell the solution, sell the solving of their problem, not your solution. In the next step, we want to handle objections, because every customer is going to have them. It's too expensive, it's too this, it's too that. You have to realize how to handle those objections. And I've actually included a video with this after this one for you to look and see some of the best ways to handle objections. Then you close the sale. Number one issue of most new sales reps, they don't close the sale. They don't ask for the sale. Then you want to negotiate, finalize the price, delivery date, who's responsible for shipping, all of those important things, okay? You do some follow-up once it's delivered. Follow up, call them. Hey, was it delivered okay? Is it running okay? Is there anything else I can do? What you want to do is ensure the customer that you're not forgetting about them. That goes to that relationship piece. We're even seeing that come into the car side these days, where usually car dealerships, because of programs run by the major automakers, call new car owners at 30, 60, 90 days to see how things are going. And then again, they probably contact them after a year to see how things are going. Technology is making all these follow-ups so much easier. Now what we can do is we can send a text message, or we can send we can send an online poll. We can do a video chat with the customer if they're at a distance. All of which reinforces that relationship, but all of which makes sure we make the best use of technology, and more importantly, the most effective use of our sales reps' time. Okay, that's the end of part one. What I've done is I've included 4 videos for you that talk about generating leads, how to qualify them, approaching the customer, and then handling objections. My advice is go and watch those and think about that in terms of an activity that you've been involved in. Let's say you've purchased a car recently, or maybe you're in the process of purchasing a house or something like that. Take a look and see how that works. Even if you've been in and bought clothes and you've had to deal with a sales rep, take a look and see how they've kind of moved you through the funnel to get you to spend your money. When you come back, we'll finish off today's lesson by talking about sales management. Thanks a lot.